Ladies and gentlemen, my beloved friend, there is a moment, a sacred moment, when the wind howls and the sky cracks open, and everything you believed would stand forever begins to fall. Oh yes, the storm comes. It comes to the strong, it comes to the faithful, it comes to those who never expected it. And in that moment, that aching, uncertain moment, the world will ask you, will you break or will you rise? And I've come to tell you today, you were not born to break. You were born with fire in your soul and wings beneath your pain. You see, the power is not in never falling. The power is in rising again when the world thinks you can't. I've walked through rooms filled with sorrow. I've looked into the eyes of those who have lost everything. You were not born to break. You were born to rise. And let me tell you, there is a radiance that shines from the broken who refuse to surrender. This truth is deeper than motivation. It is a calling etched into the very design of who you are. There are seasons in life that will shake you to the core. Storms will come, not just around you but within you. Winds of doubt, floods of fear, thunder that rolls across your soul in the form of betrayal, loss, failure. And when those storms rage, it is easy to believe the lie, the one that whispers that you are too fragile, too damaged, too tired to make it through. But listen, the fact that you're still here breathing, standing even in pieces is not weakness. It is proof of something unshakable within you. You were never created to collapse under pressure. You were never made to be a casualty of the chaos. No, there is a thread of divine resilience woven through your very being. It doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, but it holds fast. It holds you when everything else falls apart. The breaking moments are real. We don't deny them. Life will bend you, it will twist you, it will take you to the edge of your own endurance. But you were not built to stay broken. There's something inside of you that refuses to die. Even when your circumstances try to bury it, that thing, that spark, is your rise. It is the part of you that keeps hoping, even when hope feels ridiculous. It is the part of you that hears in the middle of the storm a voice that says, this is not the end. You see, the world teaches us to fear breaking, to avoid pain, to see struggle as failure. But I tell you, it's in the breaking that you find what cannot be broken. It's in the storm that you meet the part of you that was born for the climb. You were never meant to be a perfect statue, untouchable and unmoved. You were meant to be a force, fluid, alive, marked by every battle you've survived. Think of all the times you thought it was over, the days you couldn't see the next step, the nights you cried out for answers that never came. And yet, somehow, you got back up, maybe not with strength at first, maybe not with confidence, but you rose, and that matters more than you know. Rising doesn't always look like victory. Sometimes it looks like breathing through the pain. Sometimes it looks like holding on for one more hour. But make no mistake, every rise, no matter how small, is sacred. The storms don't come to expose your weakness. They come to reveal your power. Not the kind of power that controls or conquers others, but the kind that endures. The kind that says, I am still here. You may not feel powerful when your heart is breaking, but that's exactly when your power is being refined. You are not fragile. You are not hopeless. You are not a victim of your story. You are a vessel of unrelenting strength, even when you can't see it. You were not born to break. You were born to rise. Not because life is easy, but because you were made of something that difficulty cannot destroy. Pain may visit you, but it cannot possess you. Struggle may shape your path, but it cannot define your worth. You are more than the sum of your trials. You are the proof that rising again, and again, and again is not just possible, it is who you are. Real power is choosing to rise when no one sees you. There is something sacred about the moments no one claps for. The quiet victories, the unseen battles. The mornings when you get out of bed with a heart still heavy from the night before. The days when everything in you says to give up, to stay small, to disappear, and yet you choose to stand. That's power. Not the kind the world celebrates, but the kind that transforms you from the inside out. We've been conditioned to believe that power looks like applause, like dominance, like being admired and followed. But real power is often invisible. It's the decision you make in silence, when no cameras are rolling, when no one is texting to check on you, when your name isn't being spoken in any room. That's where the deepest strength lies, in the invisible space where you choose to fight for your healing, for your purpose, for your peace. Because the truth is, most people will never see the nights you cried alone. They won't know how hard it was for you to smile in public when your world was falling apart in private. They won't witness the inner war, the tug of war between despair and hope, that you fought behind closed doors. And yet you chose to keep going. You chose not to let the darkness win. You chose to keep believing in something greater than your pain. That kind of decision is where true power resides. It's not a shout, it's a whisper, not a show of vow. It's saying, I may be unseen, but I am not unloved. I may feel forgotten, but I am still rising. And that decision is the foundation of everything else. Because if you can rise when no one sees you, if you can lift yourself when no one is clapping, then you've already proven something no storm can erase. We tend to forget that the strongest trees don't grow in perfect weather. They grow in wind, in drought, in harsh soil. And so do we. When no one is watching, and still you plant seeds of faith, that's power. When you water the ground with tears and still believe something beautiful will grow, that's power. When you silence the noise of self-doubt and whisper to your own soul, keep going, that is real, unshakable power. It doesn't matter who sees you rise, it matters that you do. Because the world is not changed by perfect performances. It is changed by people who dare to rise, not once but over and over again, even in solitude. People who decide that their journey is not defined by attention, but by authenticity. Who know that being faithful in the shadows is what prepares them for the light. There's a kind of power that fame can't buy and recognition can't validate. It's the power of integrity, of self-respect, of knowing who you are when the world forgets your name. There is nothing more powerful than a soul who refuses to stay down, even when the fall was unseen and the comeback uncelebrated. That kind of person carries a different fire, a quiet fire, a holy fire. And if that's you, if you've been rising in silence, holding on when it feels like no one notices, then you are stronger than you know. You are walking proof that power doesn't need a stage. It just needs a heart that won't give up. Because every private victory builds a strength the world can never take from you. The storm is not your ending, it's your awakening. There's a moment somewhere between the breaking and the rebuilding where everything changes. Not outside of you, but within you. When the storm comes, it never asks for permission. It doesn't wait for your life to be ready, your heart to be steady, or your plans to be complete. It comes in its own time, often without warning, to undo everything you thought was certain. But in that undoing, something ancient, something powerful begins to stir. Not the end, the beginning. A deeper beginning than you've ever known. Storms don't come to destroy your soul. They come to strip away the illusions that kept you safe but small. The people, the plans, the routines that made you feel comfortable but cost you your calling. The storm tears down what no longer serves you, even when you don't realize it. And though the winds may howl and the sky may darken, it is in the chaos that the soul begins to wake up. Because comfort never called anyone higher. But pain demands transformation. In the storm, you begin to see differently. You notice things you were too busy or too distracted to feel before. You realize how precious peace is, how sacred breath is. You begin to remember what you forgot while trying to survive. You remember the dreams you buried, the strength you silenced, the voice within you that you told to be quiet so others wouldn't be uncomfortable. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, you begin to awaken to yourself. Awakening is not loud. It is not sudden. It is not dramatic. It is slow and sacred. It happens when you decide to open your eyes in the middle of the wreckage. When you look at what you lost and choose to ask, what is life trying to show me? It happens when you no longer resist what is breaking down and instead begin to listen for what is breaking open. Because every storm carries a message, not always a reason, but always a revelation. Maybe the storm came to remind you that you are not in control, but you are not helpless. Maybe it came to strip away the things you used to build your identity so that you could finally discover who you truly are. Maybe it came to wake you up from the sleep of routine, the slumber of settling, the days of fear. Because when the familiar is gone and all you have left is your breath and your spirit, you finally begin to feel the truth of your own existence. You were never meant to sleepwalk through your life. You were meant to live it, fully, deeply awake. Storms have a way of shaking everything, but what remains after the shaking is what was meant to last, your truth, your courage, your essence. The part of you that no failure can erase, no loss can diminish, and no fear can bury. That part of you is what awakens in the storm. Not because of the pain, but because of the clarity that pain brings. Suddenly, you see what matters. Suddenly, you stop pretending. Suddenly, you feel alive even in your tears. There is an awakening happening every time life falls apart. It is the soul calling you higher. Not to fix everything, not to go back to what was, but to rise into who you were always meant to become. The storm is not here to end you. It is here to remove what no longer belongs to the real you. It is here to open the door that fear kept shut. It is here to remind you that something inside of you is too powerful to be destroyed. You are not your failure, you are your resilience. There is a voice that whispers in the quiet corners of your mind, a voice that echoes every misstep, every setback, every missed opportunity. It tries to define you by what went wrong, by the relationships that ended, the chances you didn't take, the goals you didn't reach. It clings to your memory like a shadow, always pointing back to where you fell. But that voice is a lie, a convincing lie, yes, but a lie nonetheless. You were never meant to be reduced to the worst thing that ever happened to you. You were never meant to carry your failure as a name, because failure is a moment. Resilience is who you are. Everyone fails, everyone stumbles. What separates the broken from the unbreakable is not the absence of failure, but the decision to get back up, again and again, and again. There is a beauty in rising that only failure can teach. When everything falls apart, you find what you're really made of. Not the surface version of yourself, the polished, practiced one, but the core, the deep part of you that refuses to give up even when you have every reason to. That's where resilience lives, not in perfection, but in persistence. The world may remember your wins, but your soul will remember your rising. The times you didn't let shame keep you silent. The times you learned, even when you lost. The nights you wept but still showed up the next morning. These are not small things. These are sacred. These are what make you unshakable. Because real strength isn't forged in easy days. It's formed in the dark, in the doubt, in the disappointment. You are not your failure. You are the person who looked failure in the face and said, "This isn't where my story ends." Resilience isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes resilience looks like sitting in the wreckage of your plans and deciding to breathe anyway. Sometimes it's choosing to forgive yourself when you could just as easily give up. It's choosing to see failure not as proof that you're unworthy, but as a lesson, a turning point, a necessary breaking to reveal your deeper becoming. You see, we live in a world that tries to tie our identity to our achievements. That tells us we are only as good as our results. But the truth is far more powerful. You are not your title, your bank account, your record of wins or losses. You are the one who endures, the one who adapts, the one who grows. That is resilience, that is worth. And no failure, no matter how final it may feel, can erase that. Sometimes the hardest battle is not the one against the world, but the one within yourself. The battle to believe that you are still worthy, still whole, still becoming something beautiful even after you've failed. And that belief, that inner fight, is where transformation happens. Not when everything goes right, but when everything has gone wrong and you still refuse to let that be the end of the story. Failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. It does not mark you forever. It does not define the limit of your strength or the scope of your future. It is a teacher. And once it has taught you what you needed to learn, it has no more authority over your life. What remains is your choice to rise, to keep going, to believe in yourself, not because you've never fallen, but because you always get back up. You are not your failure, you are your resilience. The quiet, steady, fierce resilience that chooses to begin again, not because it's easy, but because something in you knows you were made to continue. You are not finished. You are still in motion. You are still becoming. You are not your failure, you are your resilience. There is a voice that whispers in the quiet corners of your mind, a voice that echoes every misstep, every setback, every missed opportunity. It tries to define you by what went wrong, by the relationships that ended, the chances you didn't take, the goals you didn't reach. It clings to your memory like a shadow, always pointing back to where you fell. But that voice is a lie. A convincing lie, yes, but a lie nonetheless. You were never meant to be reduced to the worst thing that ever happened to you. You were never meant to carry your failure as a name, because failure is a moment. Resilience is who you are. Everyone fails, everyone stumbles. What separates the broken from the unbreakable is not the absence of failure, but the decision to get back up, again and again and again. There is a beauty in rising that only failure can teach. When everything falls apart, you find what you're really made of. Not the surface version of yourself, the polished, practiced one, but the core, the deep part of you that refuses to give up even when you have every reason to. That's where resilience lives. Not in perfection, but in persistence. The world may remember your wins, but your soul will remember your rising. The times you didn't let shame keep you silent. The times you learned even when you lost. The nights you wept but still showed up the next morning. These are not small things. These are sacred. These are what make you unshakable. Because real strength isn't forged in easy days. It's formed in the dark, in the doubt, in the disappointment. You are not your failure. You are the person who looked failure in the face and said, "This isn't where my story ends." Resilience isn't loud. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes, resilience looks like sitting in the wreckage of your plans and deciding to breathe anyway. Sometimes it's choosing to forgive yourself when you could just as easily give up. It's choosing to see failure not as proof that you're unworthy, but as a lesson, a turning point, a necessary breaking to reveal your deeper becoming. You see, we live in a world that tries to tie our identity to our achievements, that tells us we are only as good as our results. But the truth is far more powerful. You are not your title, your bank account, your record of wins or losses. You are the one who endures, the one who adapts, the one who grows. That is resilience. That is worth. And no failure, no matter how final it may feel, can erase that. Sometimes the hardest battle is not the one against the world, but the one within yourself. The battle to believe that you are still worthy, still whole, still becoming something beautiful even after you've failed. And that belief, that inner fight, is where transformation happens. Not when everything goes right, but when everything has gone wrong and you still refuse to let that be the end of the story. Failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. It does not mark you forever. It does not define the limit of your strength or the scope of your future. It is a teacher. And once it has taught you what you needed to learn, it has no more authority over your life. What remains is your choice to rise, to keep going, to believe in yourself, not because you've never fallen, but because you always get back up. You are not your failure, you are your resilience. The quiet, steady, fierce resilience that chooses to begin again, not because it's easy, but because something in you knows you were made to continue. You are not finished. You are still in motion. You are still becoming. Hope in the storm is the fiercest kind of strength. It takes no strength to hope when everything is going well. When the skies are clear, when the answers come quickly, when the road ahead is smooth, anyone can believe. But real hope, the kind that shakes the foundations of despair, is forged in the storm. It is birthed in the chaos, in the moments when the wind is howling and the night feels endless. That kind of hope doesn't arrive wrapped in comfort. It arrives in pieces, gathered in the dark, whispered through trembling lips. It is not soft. It is not naive. It is defiant. It is fierce. When everything around you is falling apart and you still dare to believe that something good is possible, you are not weak. You are powerful beyond measure. The world may look at you and see a person barely holding on, but they do not see what's happening inside your spirit. They don't see the fire that refuses to go out. They don't see the inner decision to keep standing, keep breathing, keep dreaming, even when the evidence tells you not to. That is strength the storm cannot take. Hope in the storm is not blind. It doesn't deny the pain or pretend everything is fine. It stares reality in the face and still chooses to believe there's more. It knows the odds, it feels the weight, but it still lifts its eyes. Hope in the storm is not about escaping the storm. It's about enduring it with your soul intact. It's about choosing to see light even when surrounded by darkness, about believing in healing even when you're still bleeding. There is something holy about the moment you decide to hope when it would be easier to give in. That moment is sacred. It's the place where your humanity meets something divine. It's the place where the storm may rage around you, but something in you says, I will not be moved. And that something, that immovable thread of hope, is the anchor that holds you when everything else tries to pull you under. The strength of hope is not that it removes the storm, but that it outlasts it. Hope whispers through the thunder, speaks over the fear, and gently takes your hand and leads you forward. Even if your steps are slow, even if your heart is heavy, even if the storm has taken so much from you, hope will give you back something the storm can never touch: your will to keep going. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is hope, not because you see the answer, but because you choose to believe it still exists. Sometimes hope means waking up and saying, today, I'll try again. Sometimes it's simply breathing when everything hurts. Sometimes it's letting yourself cry, but refusing to let go of your vision. Hope doesn't always look like bold declarations. Sometimes it's just staying one more day. People may misunderstand your hope. They may call it unrealistic or foolish. But they don't know what it cost you to keep believing. They don't know how many nights you've spent fighting to keep the flame alive. And they don't need to. Because this kind of strength doesn't need to be understood to be powerful. It just needs to be chosen. Hope is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. It's the quiet courage to reach toward the light even when you can't yet see it. And those storms may strip away many things. They cannot take the soul of someone who refuses to let go of hope. That kind of strength is unstoppable. That kind of hope is unshakable. You don't need to feel strong to be strong. Strength is not always loud. It is not always seen. It is not always something you can feel in the moment. Sometimes strength is quiet, trembling, uncertain. Sometimes it's hidden beneath tears and questions, beneath fatigue and confusion. We've been taught to associate strength with certainty, with boldness, with visible power. But the truth is, some of the strongest moments of your life will look nothing like that. They will look like you continuing when you don't know how, holding on when you don't feel anything left to hold, walking forward while doubt screams in your ears. You are strongest when you choose not to quit, not because you feel powerful, but because something inside you refuses to surrender. That kind of strength is not about the absence of weakness. It's about the courage to move in spite of it. It's not about being fearless. It's about being afraid and still saying yes. Yes to life, yes to healing, yes to hope. Strength is not the roar of the lion. Sometimes it is the whisper that says, I will try again tomorrow. There are days when you will feel empty, days when the weight you carry seems too heavy, and yet you get up, you show up, you do what needs to be done. That is strength. The world may not see it, others may not understand it, but that doesn't change its value. Strength isn't always visible, but it is always present in the ones who choose to keep going, even when everything in them says stop. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. You don't have to wait until you feel brave. Strength is not a feeling, it's a decision. 1,000 small decisions that say, I won't give up. It's brushing your teeth when your heart is broken. It's speaking kindly to yourself when your inner critic screams. It's choosing to love again after being hurt. It's showing up for life when part of you wants to disappear. These acts are not small. They are sacred. They are proof that your spirit is stronger than the storm. Don't let the absence of emotion fool you. You may not feel strong, but you are still standing. You may not feel brave, but you are still trying. You may not feel victorious, but you are still in the fight. And that matters. That counts. Sometimes the strength you're looking for isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the breath you take after crying, the step you take when your legs are shaking, the forgiveness you offer when your heart is still healing. These moments build the kind of strength that no storm can erase. Stop measuring your strength by how confident you feel. Measure it by how faithful you are to keep going. Measure it by the truth that you are still here, that life has not defeated you, no matter how many battles you've had to fight. You are strong not because you've never felt weak, but because you've chosen to rise again and again in spite of that weakness. Strength isn't the absence of pain, it's the refusal to be defined by it. Even when you're unsure, even when you feel broken, even when the path ahead is unclear, the very act of taking another step is strength in motion. The very act of not giving up is courage unfolding. You may not see it now, you may not feel it yet, but every breath you take, every time you choose love over fear, every moment you show up for your life, that is strength whether you feel it or not. There is a fire inside you that no storm can put out. It may flicker, it may grow faint. There will be nights when the wind is strong, when the world feels cold, and you wonder if that flame is still alive. But it is, it always is. That fire is not something life gave you, so life cannot take it away. It's not the product of perfect conditions or easy days. It was placed in you long before the storms ever came. It was born in the depths of your being. A light that was meant to burn, not because the world is kind, but because your soul is fierce. You've walked through things others may never understand. You've carried burdens in silence, kept going with a broken heart, kept smiling when all you wanted was to disappear. You've had to rebuild from pieces, start again with nothing, hold on when everything around you fell apart. And still you rise, still that fire in you burns, still something in you refuses to be extinguished. That's not weakness, that's not accident, that's power, that's who you are. Life may try to convince you that you're fragile, but you're easily broken. But fragile things don't last in storms. You're still here. That alone is proof of your strength. The fire within you is not made of ease. It's made of resilience. It's made of grit. It's made of everything you've survived and everything you've learned along the way. It's the quiet knowing that even when you feel shaken, you are not destroyed. Even when the night is long, morning still comes. That flame in you knows how to wait for the dawn. Don't mistake exhaustion for defeat. Even the strongest fire needs tending. You are allowed to rest, to pause, to breathe. But never confuse rest with giving up. The fire inside you is not fueled by constant motion. It's fueled by purpose. It's the spark of something greater calling you forward. Even when your hands are tired, even when your eyes are full of tears, that inner fire doesn't go out. It waits, it whispers, it calls. Sometimes it's hard to believe in your own strength when all you see is what's been lost. But the fire doesn't live in what you've lost. It lives in what you still carry. It's in your will to heal, your desire to love again, your refusal to give up on the person you were born to be. That fire is not dependent on circumstances. It is not fueled by applause. It is not limited by other people's ability to see it. It simply exists, unshaken, unstoppable. There will be people who underestimate you. There will be moments when you underestimate yourself. But the fire doesn't listen to doubt. It doesn't care about opinion. It answers only to truth. And the truth is, you are more powerful than the storm. Not because you can control it, but because you can outlast it. Because your spirit is forged in something storms cannot touch. You've already proven that you're not the kind of person who gives up easily. You've been through fire and still carry light. You've been through loss and still believe in life. The fire inside you isn't just survival, it's transformation. It's the decision to rise with grace, to stand with conviction, to walk with purpose even when the ground shakes beneath you. That's the kind of fire storms cannot kill. It's the kind of fire that lights the way, not just for you, but for others who are still finding their strength. You don't have to be loud to burn brightly. You don't have to be seen to make an impact. Sometimes the strongest fire is the one that burns steadily, quietly through the darkest nights. The one that keeps going not because it's easy, but because it's true. Because it remembers where it came from. Because it knows what it was made for. Your comeback will be greater than your setback. There is something sacred about starting again. Not because the journey is easy, but because it proves that you're still breathing, still fighting, still believing in the possibility of more. The setback may have knocked the wind out of you. It may have broken your plans, stolen your peace, or shattered the image you had of what life should look like by now. But it has not broken you. That's the difference. That's where the seeds of the comeback are planted, not in comfort, but in the chaos. Not in applause, but in the silence where you decide to begin again with nothing but faith in your hands. You don't need to have all the answers to make a comeback. You don't need a perfect plan or a guarantee of success. What you need is the decision to no longer let the past define your future. You've been through things that hurt, yes, but pain does not get the final word. Setbacks are not tombstones, they're turning points. What you do now, what you choose to believe now, is what builds the next chapter. And what's coming has the potential to be more powerful, more beautiful, and more meaningful than anything you've lost. A setback doesn't mean you were weak. It doesn't mean you failed beyond repair. Sometimes life breaks down what is no longer serving you, even when you're not ready to let it go. Sometimes the ground has to shake for you to find your foundation again. Sometimes what looks like a detour is actually a doorway. The comeback begins the moment you stop waiting for things to go back to how they were and start opening your heart to what could be even better. You don't have to pretend that the setback didn't hurt. You don't have to minimize the pain or rush through the process. True healing honors the depth of the wound, but it also honors the depth of your strength. There is a version of you that will rise from this, wiser, deeper, more aligned with your purpose. The fire may have taken some things from you, but it also revealed what cannot be destroyed, your spirit, your vision, your capacity to begin again. The greatest stories are not the ones without struggle. They're the ones where the struggle became the soil for something miraculous to grow. Where what was meant to bury you ended up becoming the foundation you stood on. Your comeback doesn't have to look like anyone else's. It doesn't have to follow the rules. It can be slow. It can be quiet. But it will be real. It will be yours. And it will be undeniable. You are not who you were before the setback. You are more. You've seen what you can survive. You've watched parts of yourself be refined in the fire. And what's left is not lesser. It's stronger, more focused, more courageous. That kind of transformation can't be taught in comfort. It's earned in the valley. And from that valley, you will rise. When the comeback begins, you won't need to announce it. People will see it in your eyes, in the way you walk with authority, in the way you speak with compassion, in the way you carry peace even in uncertainty. The comeback is not about returning to an old version of yourself. It's about stepping into the new version that the setback helped reveal. This is the version of you that cannot be shaken, that knows who they are, that has learned to trust the deeper current of grace moving through it all. The most powerful thing about your comeback is that it won't just redeem what was lost. It will multiply what is possible. It will turn the pain into power, the delay into development, the breaking into building. What looked like an end is actually a beginning wrapped in disguise. And this time you won't rise empty-handed. You'll rise carrying wisdom, clarity, and fire. Beloved, storms will come, but so will the rising. You were never meant to live at the mercy of the wind. You were created with power, with vision, with an unshakable spirit that the storm cannot break. This journey, this fire, this pressing, it is not your undoing, it is your becoming. You have within you the authority to stand, the grace to rebuild, and the fire to rise again and again. Let the world see not just what you've been through, but who you've become because of it. You are not defined by the breaking, you are revealed by the rising. And when you rise, you carry not only your healing but the light that will awaken others. This is your moment. This is your voice. This is your power. Be unstoppable.